Okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to the call for tonight. Do me a favor, if you can hear me, please put the letter Y in the question box. And we'll be getting started in about 3 minutes. It's about 8:57 Eastern Standard Time. So once again, if you can hear me, okay, thanks, David. We'll be getting started in just a minute. Of course, while folks are coming in, if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and just write them there in the box. I do have some things I am going to cover if you don't. And we're gonna pick it up from the pretty much the end of the series, and I'm going to be covering some things that to kind of conclude before I get into the cash flow portion of maximizing your internet marketing profits. So we will be doing that. So once again, if you have any questions, feel free to write them there in the box. Doesn't really matter what the question is. Does not have to be limited to PLR. It can be just about anything. And if if I don't know the answer, I will be happy to go and get it. So any questions that you have, go ahead and write them there in the box. And while you do that, I'll be getting my slide presentation ready here. And let's see. I'm going to cut that, move that down here. And once again, you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and write them there in the box. And it's about 8:59 Eastern Standard Time. As I said, we'll be getting started in about 1 or 2 minutes. I do want to spend some time on your questions if you have them. Oh, good, David. Yeah, no, a lot of that stuff in there is really good in terms of being able to learn how to sell on a call. No, thank you. I appreciate that. Kind of one of those under the radar things. All right, it's about 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we are going to go ahead and get started. And once again, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions about any thing in particular. And we will go ahead and get started. Let me pull up from the current. I'll slide that over. And then I'll share my screen here. Okay. I'm going to just recap what we've talked about in the previous calls in this series. It's been a little more than my normal weekend Q&A call over the past 2.5 weeks. And let's kind of touch on what we've talked about so far. In session 1, we talked about the fact that you've got these purchases that you've already made, and that you can turn those purchases into services, right? If you want to monetize them. And we talked about how you can do that. We talked about the fact that you could turn you can turn webinars that you attend into your own products. And one thing that I didn't even mention in that call is that is an excellent way for you to be able to give uniqueness to PLR that you buy. by going back and going through some of the webinar content and then sharing some of the ideas in that webinar content. Definitely, you can then credit the person who actually did the webinar. So that's another way. We talked about that whether or not, regardless of what you have, whether or not it's PLR, whether or not it's a course, whether or not it's software, we talked about the fact that you can turn all those purchases into your own product. And we talked about how to do that. We talked about it using the 7P method. We talked about the fact that you can turn your existing purchases, right, all the stuff that you've bought in internet marketing and on your hard drive, you can turn those into affiliate promotions, right? Whether or not those are new purchases or even old purchases, sometime you can turn all those into affiliate promotions. You can turn you can actually do webinars and workshops with some of the products that you have, and that's really a great way for you to be able to monetize them, even if the launch period is past. We talked about some alternative ways of looking at PLR, understanding the fact that I will be doing a course that is comprehensive in nature on just about everything that you can think of to monetize your PLR. So I only did the 50,000 foot view in that webinar, but it is there, and it's a part of the series. We talked about turning all of the products that you have into list building opportunities, and we talked about how you could do that in session 7. We talked about the fact that tonight we're just going to wrap up, and that even after the wrap up, there are 2 more parts. There is we're going to talk about cash flow, and then we're going to talk about cash flow in a part 2, and that will end the series. And as a reminder, this is going to become an actual product that I'm putting together. Most of the things I had a chance to tell you what to do, and that took about I think total. If I'm looking at this, it probably took us about 5 hours, right, of total time. And what we're going to do is I'm going to actually not only tell you what to do in the course, I'm going to give you the how to also. So we're going to actually demonstrate how to do it. So that course is coming up. So how do we conclude this series? How do we conclude what we've talked about so far? How do we conclude taking your existing products and turning them into profit in all those different ways? And so the attitudes that you want to have as you look at all of your purchases, as you look at your JVZoo inventory, is that hidden in everything you buy are multiple opportunities to generate leads and make sales. So, and that's regardless of what the proposed purpose of the product is. We've kind of looked at this from multiple angles. That even if you buy a course and that course is about CPA marketing, within that there are multiple opportunities for you to be able to generate leads and make sales. And not that I'm advocating this, but even if you never did anything with it in the way of CPA marketing, there are multiple opportunities to generate leads and make sales. And that's going to be the case with any product. And that basically almost summarizes the entire series if you have been following. Now, the other thing that we talked about, and we didn't talk about in detail, that I do want to talk about here, is that that when you buy, right, you always want to buy in line with 3 things, right? In line with 3 basic things. Number 1, your brand, and the brand matters, right? So in other words, if you're gonna buy something and you're gonna reuse it, or you're gonna use it as a bonus, or you're going to resell it, make sure it's in line with what you want to be selling. Make sure it's in line with whatever you call your brand. Make sure it's in line with your unique selling proposition. So in other words, try to bring something into your marketing funnel. If you're going to put it back out there, that it's something that makes you unique, that it's something that makes you stand out, even if it's a combination of things inside of there. Make sure that what you're offering people cannot get anyplace else. And sometimes that means that you're going to take what you have. It might mean that you need to go get a result so you can teach other people. But regardless, you want to have a USP before you take a product and you turn it into something that's you're gonna be able to use in order to sell. And that's, again, once again, now, if you have been following the series, it really doesn't even matter in these cases what I'm talking about, whether or not you have resale rights. That's not even the whole vibe. Of course, resale rights and PLR rights really matter, but in the cases we've been talking about here in this series, you don't even have to have resale rights in order to do some of the stuff that we have been talking about. And I want to come back to a number of you, if you have taken, or if you have you owned, right, you have gone through the 30-day challenge. You already know this. If you haven't, I'm gonna suggest that you do that as soon as you can. It is what I consider to be the context for internet marketing. You're trying to make sense of everything. And I said this. You always want to make sure you buy in line with your infrastructure. Your infrastructure. Big 50-cent word. Let me tell you what that means. It means that whatever you need for a particular kind of internet marketing business, you want to make sure you have those things. Don't buy an information product if you don't have a mic to do good video, right? So in other words, make sure you have your hardware and your infrastructure in place. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have a superpower computer, but once again, I mean, if you don't have that, right, and you're kind of limping along, you might want to make sure you have the tools that you need to do in order to do internet marketing. You need to make sure you have an autoresponder. Getting an autoresponder on the day that you need to start collecting leads is the wrong day to get it. Making sure you have a page building system, and it doesn't matter which one you get, right? Of course, I mean, I'm a partner inside of one. I would urge you to do that, but I use that sometimes. Sometimes I use Optimized Press. What matters is that it's easy for you to use, right? That's what's most important. So you can have multiple things, but you want to make sure that you have a page builder. We went over all of those things in the 30-day challenge. So once again, if you don't have that, make sure that you go ahead and pick up the 30-day challenge soon. Also, right, and I want to say this: if you haven't considered a direction, right, don't let the purchases that you do make keep you from making the purchases that you must make. And that's really what I was talking about here. If you know you need a webinar system, don't put that off, right? Because you're getting things that you think might, cause you to be able to hit a home run. And again, I'm the last person that says you need to not buy anything. I am saying, though, that you want to make sure that you have bought all the things that you need to do business first. And how do I know that? I'm telling you that from experience because in the early days, I mean, I put off buying membership site software because, oh, well, it's too expensive and I want to buy this other stuff. And so I never did just go ahead and drop the $300 and $400 for the software for a long time. It took me a long time before I went ahead and paid the money. And it was important probably that I probably needed to do that early on so that I would be ready to take advantage of some opportunities. Look, if you know you're going to do a certain kind of business, you need to go ahead and buy the stuff you need to buy, but you put that at the front of the line. And the example I used here is this. If you were a furniture store, you wouldn't put off buying inventory. You wouldn't put off going to get your office space. You wouldn't put off going to the electric company and getting the electric turned on. And some of the businesses that you have, right, you don't want to put off those purchases that you know you need, right? Again, I love buying from launches, right? I love buying new toys, but I think that it's human nature for us to want to try to buy something that we think is going to cause us to be able to hit a home run without doing the work. And so, and what I'm saying to you is that instead of that, right, keep that stuff to a minimum and make sure that you're buying the stuff that will take you in your business where you need to go. You don't have to have another page builder that does 10 things, but you do need to have one. right? You don't have to have an autoresponder that does all this fancy stuff. If you don't have one at all, start by getting one first, right? If you're not ready to collect leads and make sales, then listen, you got to do that first, right? If you don't know where you're going to go get somebody to do graphics, and you don't know HTML and you don't know Photoshop, I'm not saying that you have to learn how to do those things, but you're going to need to have somebody do it. And so you have to go ahead and make those purchases when you need them in the beginning, as opposed to buying the little stuff that will cause you to put off buying the stuff that you need. All right, does that make sense? Is everybody with me on that? I want to say that, right, and it's important, and I know that it's that it makes sense because that's what I did, right? I did actually what I did not do, right? It's again, it's just human nature. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit. I want to close out by just kind of giving you a few things to think about as we have discussed having purchases and what you want to do. And I'm kind of cutting this off, calling this cheap substitutes. Now, there's a book out that I've been talking about in my webinars called Peak. It's by Anders Ericsson. You can get it at Amazon. And basically, the premise of the book is this: if you want to improve anything, it takes deliberate practice. Deliberate practice. And deliberate practice is practice that you start out every day with an effort to do something that's going to be impactful, and it's either going to work or not work. And if it doesn't work, you have taken note of what didn't work before you go and you take action on it again before you actually see something that starts to improve. In other words, if you and I are not making an effort to improve on something every day that's going to lead to profits, then we're not going to make them, right? And it is the truth. And so this deliberate practice means that you have to make repeated attempts to try different things in order to get the money coming into your PayPal account, right? Now, I'm not saying that you need to jump around in different things, but I am saying that if you're going to be a product creator, right? If you're going to create products to make money, then you have to make repeated attempts to create the products and launch them, right? Until you get it. And that is the only way that you get better and you actually do end up making money, whether or not it's in internet marketing or any kind of business opportunity. It takes repeated attempts to try different things until something works, until something hits. And then you got to have feedback. And one of the great things about launching a product is feedback, right? I launched a product and I got 2 sales. That's feedback. I launched a product and I got 5 sales. That's feedback. I launched a product and I didn't get any views on it. That's feedback, right? So you have got to do something concretely every day, right? That really is a repeated attempt to try different things and get feedback. And I'm going to tell you why this is important. Because when you buy software, you cannot, and listen to me carefully, and I mean this, you can't substitute buying software for deliberate practice, right? Don't ever think that it'll be a substitute. Again, I'm all for buying software. I'm all for buying software to make your business running more effectively, but don't think you can substitute it for getting better and doing and making repeated attempts until you make money. Does everybody make sense? So if you understand what I'm saying when I say that, please put the number 1 in the question box, right? If you understand what I'm saying, be careful in thinking that you can substitute buying software for getting better at what you do, right? There is no substitute for that. And so before you buy something, right, a piece of software, it's fine to buy. You just can't buy it with the expectation that it's going to do something that you can't do and make money for you. It typically does not work that way, right? Now, and for an example, here's what I say. If you do not know how to make Facebook ads, right, work for you, buying a piece of software is not going to help you, right? And so you and I have to understand how Facebook ads work. We need to understand how to find our audience, and software is not going to help us until we understand that, Right now, we can get software to help us facilitate that process. We can get software that'll help us to make that process faster. But you and I have to have it in our heads that we still have to understand how Facebook ads work. Now, that's an example. I'm not just talking just about Facebook or Facebook ads. I'm just using that as an example. So does that make sense? So if this makes sense, please put the number 2 in the question box. Right. So just make sure that when you buy software, you do not buy it under the expectation that it's going to do something for you that you don't know how to do, that you can't do. Right now, cheap substitutes. Okay, now there is what is called the blue ocean strategy. It's another book, and it's pretty old. Probably heard of it. A lot of people talk about it. And basically, you and I have to understand where the market is and offer something that isn't already there. Right. So even if we're going to do another course on Facebook ads, we need to be able to add something to it, right, that people cannot get in the marketplace otherwise. That part is important. So why is that important in the context of everything else we're talking about? So we still have to understand what's selling and what sells. Right now, that's pretty easy to do because we have JVZoo and Warrior Plus that give us statistics, and we can actually look at the statistics. We can look at conversion rates and closing rates, and we can figure out what sells. Right? We can understand what people want. Right? People vote with their wallets. We can understand that. That's objective. It is something that we can look at. Right? It's quantifiable. We can understand what's desired. But PLR. Right, when you buy it, is raw material. And I listen, I say this all the time, that PLR is probably the most fantastic bargain there is today in internet marketing, if you understand it's raw material. Right, that all by itself, it will not do the job for you. So you and I have to be careful in thinking that we can substitute it for understanding the market and doing the work. Right, so if we just think we're just going to get it, take it out of the box and slap it up and throw it up in front of people, and then expect just expect sales and sales and sales to come. That does not happen, right? So we can't substitute PLR for understanding the market and doing the work. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is if we use PLR as raw material to put something together to meet the demand in the market, right? The starting point is what the market wants. And we go and get the PLR and we change it to meet the demand. In other words, we don't take the PLR and go to the market and say, here, I know you want this. What we do is we find out what the market wants and what it's struggling with. We get our PLR and we turn it into what the market needs. Now, if that makes sense to you, please put the number 3 in the question box. Okay, so understand something. Don't substitute buying PLR for understanding the market and doing the work. PLR is raw material, right? It's raw material that we turn into what the market really wants and needs. Now, okay, we're wrapping up here. Okay, thirdly, okay, there's a book out now that I'm reading now. I'm in the middle of it. It's by a gentleman named Cal Newport. And if you haven't read Deep Work, I'm going to highly suggest that you read it. Right, it's called Deep Work. It's by a gentleman named Cal Newport. It also comes on audiobook, right? And it is fantastic. And what it's about is how all of the things that you and I do to distract ourselves every day, right? That we substitute distractions. And we think we've done work, and we look up, it's been 3 hours have passed, and really all we've really done is we've built ourselves into a bit of this, into a wall of distraction, right? And so what we've got to be able to do is, even if we have these products on our hard drive, in order to make them work, we've got to get out and we've got to be able to beat the distraction. Now, what do I mean by that? Schedule interaction with other people. So in other words, if you, I mean, of course, I want you to schedule this call on Saturday nights, but schedule a time to interact. In other words, when you get the opportunity, and many times on these calls, right, I am available for at least for 30 minutes to answer questions. And so if you know that, what happens is, I know that what happens is, you probably have questions, but you don't come to them until Tuesday night, or sometimes you may not come to it until Thursday, and then by the time Saturday runs around, you may or may not have even remember what it is you want to ask. In other words, start scheduling interaction. Schedule it. Right? Keep your work, and your interaction. Make sure your interaction is focused. So in other words, getting on Facebook. Again, it's not that I don't like Facebook. I think Facebook is fantastic. It is incredibly distracting, right? Even when you are involved in a conversation, even when you are involved and you are watching somebody live. Some of you are probably watching me live on Facebook right now, right? In the Hangout. What I'm saying to you is that you have to make sure that your interaction is focused. And what I didn't put here is that you've got to determine what that interaction is going to be ahead of time. And one of the ways you can do that is making sure that you keep a running list of all of the roadblocks you have, right? All of the roadblocks you have, and then you get them straight when your scheduled interaction time comes. Listen, for 30 minutes, I'm available. So you should have a list of questions that you have run into during the week, so that when you get here, you can actually have your questions answered. And what's going to happen is that you're going to find out, you're going to start moving forward, because the minute your questions get answered, typically what happens is you're able to move past a roadblock. Number one thing that holds internet marketers back isn't shiny object syndrome. It isn't buying stuff. It's that when you start having questions about what it takes to move forward, it stumps you, and then you know what, we end up then just kind of getting on a webinar out of frustration with what we're trying to make work, or we'll start reading email, or we'll get on social media. Right? Does this sound like reality? If that sounds like reality to you, please put the number 4 in the question box. In other words, you hit the wall, and so it starts feeling like, you know what, this is fruitless. I'm gonna find something else to do. And so in order to keep busy inside internet marketing, so you go to a webinar, or you go to social media and find an internet marketing group. All those things are cool, except that it's not focused. It's not focused interaction. Make sure that your interaction is scheduled, number one, and it's focused. Now, lastly, get a coach, right? Get a coach. And I'm not saying you have to join my coaching program. I am saying you do need to get one. You need to have some interaction with somebody. And again, I've got one myself. So I'm not telling you something that I'm not doing, right? You need to get a coach. I'm serious. And you think that having a coach is expensive, whatever it costs. Think about what in economics is called opportunity costs, right? And typically, opportunities are lost not by the fact that you missed out on a launch. It's that you missed out on doing something because you had one question you need to get answered, and nobody was available to you that you were not paying. Get a coach, right? Get one. Because again, all the person really has to do is either give you a little direction, just guardrails, right, to kind of steer you in the right direction. And if you have that, what happens is you start saving your interaction for those times when you meet with the coach. Right? You start saving that interaction, and then when you start organizing your internet marketing business around scheduled interaction, I promise you this. Everything that's been holding you back inside of internet marketing will start to move out of your way. Right? When you start scheduling interaction, you get your questions answered, and then you start acting on whatever it is you had a question about, I promise you your business is going to move forward. Right? I don't care whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish, I promise it will move forward. So whatever you're doing, right? However it happens, get somebody that you can interact with and schedule the time. Okay, now, and I'm going to say this, be careful in thinking that what happens inside of a Facebook group is going to turn you into profit. Most of it's going to go right out of your head. It's going to turn into distraction, right? Because what do they say nowadays? I think my kids say this now. They call it squirrel, right? In other words, you know, you're paying attention, and then a squirrel runs over there, and your attention goes over to the right hand side, and that's just the truth, and that tends to be what happens on Facebook. I'm not saying that Facebook is bad or evil. I'm just saying that there is so much there to distract you, and no sooner than you actually get something that's going to benefit you, you click out of that group, and you're going to see something that is going to take your mind away totally from what it is you just learned, right? And so again, I'm going to say don't substitute what happens in the Facebook group for real interaction. So I'm not saying don't be involved in groups. I'm not saying don't take away stuff you learn on Facebook. There's some fantastic ones out there for internet marketers. What I am saying is do not substitute that for real interaction, thinking that it's going to help you to build your business, because it isn't. Right? It's going to go through, as my mother used to say, through one ear, right back out the other one. Right? So again, keep track and make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to be a cheap substitute. Now, lastly, there's a book called Smarter Bastard Fitter, and I've talked about this. The gentleman's name is Charles Duhigg. Fantastic book. And so one of the things that he talks about is a concept called locus of control, right? Locus of control. And so we have to do the things every day that's going to put us in the driver's seat. What do we mean by that? Let me ask you a question, right? Let me ask you a question. What do you need to do in the next 7 days, right? That will cause your product or your website or whatever you're doing to make money. What do you need to do in the next 7 days? Right? That is number one priority over and above everything else you're doing. And everything else really does have to fit around that, right? What do you need to do in the next 7 days? And if you figure that out and make that list, and you make it list tonight, right, on Saturday, and you make a beeline for that list every day, what's going to happen is, again, you are going to start progressing in areas that maybe you weren't there. What has to happen every day? And this is something that I didn't get, right? I didn't get when I first started. And when for the first 2.5 or 3 years, right? You need to have what I call a minimum viable activity, right? And so that's a takeoff from some other stuff and quality stuff. I call it minimum viable activity. So what is it that separates internet marketing from being a hobby versus a business? So in other words, if your business is based on selling products, then concretely you have to create product every day, right? Before you go to bed, right? And people have to wait until these activities are done, right? And I say this in all sincerity because this is what made the difference. When I decided that regardless of what happened on a given day, right, that I had to do something to generate leads, and I had to write an email every day. Nothing is going to happen if I don't do that. So friends, right, acquaintances, even associates, even partners, right? I will tell them, you know what? I am right in the middle of my lead generation activity. I'm right in the middle of writing my email. I'm right in the middle of doing one of my minimum viable activities. Nothing, right? Nothing must happen in the business before that happens. So you have to decide, what are your minimum viable activities? If you're a product sale, if you're selling products, you have to do something concretely every day to sell products, and you have to create something every day that's going to turn into a product. You got to do some videos, you got to write some articles, you got to do some audio, you got to do some interviews every day. Every day you have to be working on this. What is yours based on your business? What is your minimum viable activity? You have to decide that, because again, if you're not going to be in the driver's seat, what's going to happen is effectively you will start to think that buying a course on something is making a decision, and it isn't. Right? Buying a course is buying a course. Buying a course is learning how to do something. It's not deciding. Right? You still have to make decisions to do something every day toward whatever it is you got to accomplish for the next 7 days. Every day you have to have a minimum viable activity toward what it is you're trying to accomplish. And again, if you're gonna buy a course, It should be facilitating what it is you're trying to get done, right? What it is you're trying to get done. Seriously, right now. Here's the order of things. You make your decision first about where you're going, and then you decide on what you need, right? Make the decision first. Decide first, right? When you decide, okay, you know what, I'm doing CPA marketing this month. Okay, then decide what you're going to buy. You decide what you need then when you decide, you know what, I'm going to launch 10 products this month, right? If that's your goal. I'm going to launch 10 products on Warrior Plus this month. If that's your goal, then everything else has to be built around that. Everything you buy has to be built around that. It works around that. And so then if you're going to launch 10 products on Warrior Plus, what's the minimum, what is your minimum viable activity? What has to happen before you go to bed? What has to happen in order for those 10 products to launch? Because you know what? Then everybody else has to take a back seat and understand, and you catch up with everybody, right? Tell everybody then, you know what? I can't do that because, you know, work went long today, and then I still have to do these things to finish for my internet marketing business. Or listen, company came over, right? My mother-in-law came over unexpectedly, right? Spent 2 hours. So what does that mean? Does that mean then that you eliminate the activity? No. What it means then is that you make the decision to finish, right, with mother-in-law, but you still got to do your minimum viable activity. Right? Does that make sense? So again, these 4 things, right, do not substitute buying courses for making a decision. Don't substitute buying software, right, for buying software for understanding what it is you got to do. Right? Don't buy raw material for understanding the market. Again, all these things are great things to have, but you still got to do the work in order to make them work. And all the products you have right now, you can actually turn those into profit for yourself if you just do some of the things we've talked about in this webinar series, but you're also not substituting additional purchases for doing the work, right? And making decisions. And so really, until now, again, I'm going to be putting this whole course into a form for you to be able to not only go back over it and sell it. There's some things in this course I just did not have time to cover. And I am going to cover those things when I actually deliver the course. So you can be on the lookout for that course. For those of you who do not have the 30-day challenge, here's what I'm going to do. I think what I'm going to do today is I'm going to, just for those of you who are on the call and who are listening, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to set up a coupon for this. And again, it's just for those of you who are buying the course. I'm going to say maximize is going to be the code, right? We're going to call the code maximize. And I'm going to go ahead and then put the discount on there. So, and I'm going to make that available for maybe about 24 hours, right? I'll make it available for 24 hours for those of you who are watching the replay. I would suggest you get the 30-day challenge. If anything that I've been talking about has been unclear, that's going to put it into context for you, right? So again, superfansactionsbonus.com/30 days, right? Go ahead and pick it up over there. And then there is a discount for you at that link, right? If you use the code maximize, let me go ahead and put that code in here, maximize, 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 right? You put that code in there, and then you're going to get a significant discount. And that's just for those of you who are listening to the call. I'm not going to mail this out tomorrow. If you're watching by archive or you are watching live, you have access to that discount for the next few hours. Okay, and then also, I mentioned it here on the call. I have a coach. I'm going to suggest, you just really have to be able to kind of run into somebody and be able to bounce stuff off people, right? And so you're getting one of our products once every month. You're getting on a call once a week, and you're able then to kind of throw stuff off me. And what's going to happen once again is being able to get your question answered is probably going to be more valuable than the next product you buy. I can almost guarantee it. And from experience, again, I put off getting a coach for a long time. And once I got one, I was so incredibly moved that I wish I had done it. I wish that had been the first thing I did, right? Because again, how many of you have had this experience? How many of you all have had this experience? You know what to do, right? So it isn't that you don't understand what people are talking about, but when it comes down to executing, one detail can ruin all the stuff you understand. So in other words, you understand what's happening, but then you get down and you try to make something happen, and then you run into a problem. You run into an HTML problem, or you run into a how to do YouTube problem, or you run into a Photoshop problem. And then that ends up derailing you for that night. Right? If that's ever happened to you, please put the number 5 in the question box. If you've ever been derailed by one thing, right? If that's ever happened to you, that's what I'm talking about. Right? That's one of the reasons why you seriously want to consider getting a coach. Because again, it's really having a matter of being able to get the one thing answered when you actually need to have it happen, right? Okay, and as I've said, the price on that on the coaching program, it goes up every month. It's going up again this month when I add in an additional product to that to the program. So it is going to go up again this month at the beginning of August. So you probably have a little while longer, but not much. Okay, but any questions? Any questions on what we talked about here tonight? I want to make sure that this is pretty clear. You're actually right now you're actually looking at the course that's coming out. There's about we've got about 50 minus these 2 slides. They're about 48. They're about 48 slides. So it's going to be a pretty long course. And this doesn't even count the hands-on stuff, right? So these 48 slides are going to be part of the course that's coming out. And then, these 2 are obviously not going to be there, but it will be ready, right? We'll be ready hopefully by next week. Okay. Any other questions? Any questions? Any questions? Well, okay, everyone. Well, it's been good being with you here tonight. I wish you well. I'm going to try to get back into production mode here. I've been out for this week, and I'm just kind of getting back to getting back to work full steam here. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Have a great night and a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.